Oh, hi. I didn't hear you come in. Hey, welcome to my home. This is my son Dylan, for those who haven't met him yet. Just taking him for a nap. But hey, this week on Camera Talk, since you're here, I'm going to be talking about Luminar and Luminar AI. Well, particularly Luminar AI. You know, for those who follow my channel, you know at the end of every video I always do a little plug for Luminar AI, because it's the photo editing software that I use. And just this week, Luminar AI released you know, a new update, release number 4, or update number 4. And there's one particular feature that I think is really cool, and it's the portrait bokeh, or bokeh for some who say it that way, but I say bokeh.
With rich, smooth, buttery bokeh.
I think it's pretty cool. How about you? You think it's cool, mister? He thinks so too. But anyway, that's what we're going to talk about this week on Camera Talk. So it's kind of like a little special episode. So, hey, after I put this guy to bed, come on back and we'll talk about that cool little feature. So, stick with me.
Here I am, Vietnam. Rain is always coming down.
Camera Talk with Dr. Scott. All right, this week, we're not talking about cameras or anything. Well, sort of, kind of. It's still photography. But this week we're going to be kind of focused on, you know, editing your photos. I almost said editing your software. So I got that stuck in my mind for some reason. But it's editing your photos. Now I use, you know, if you're familiar with my you know, my channel, at the end I always, you know, give it a little shout out to Luminar and Luminar AI. You know, they're both standalone software for editing your photos, but they're also plugins for, you know, Lightroom, Photoshop, and whatnot. So they could be used either way. But if you're you know, if you're a hobbyist or enthusiast, such as myself, you know, I'm not selling photos to any, you know, magazines or newspapers or websites or fashion shows or anything else, or billboards. So, you know, I don't want to spend a ton of time editing my photos. I mean, it'd be great if you could just take a picture of something and upload it and away you go, which is pretty much what you do with your cell phone. But there's no reason still that you don't want the nicest version of your photo that you can get, but you don't want to spend hours and hours and hours with it, right? So I have both Luminar, it's Luminar 4 is the latest version, and Luminar AI. And AI, of course, as you know, stands for artificial intelligence.
What does this action signify?
Now, is that true? Is it really intelligent? Or is it, well, it's artificial, so it's fake intelligence, and we live in a world of fake news and fake everything else. But really, if you look at it as a simplistic term, as far as, you know, just making your life easier, making your workflow easier, Luminar AI is great because it's kind of a one-click, one-stop shop kind of thing. Now, that doesn't mean that you necessarily have to go with the templates that come with the program and click on them and away you go and you're good to go, which you can, of course, because they are pretty good. But you can tweak them, you know, a little bit to make them your own. That's what I always tell my students in class when they're writing essays or anything else. I say, when you're giving recommendations, don't just give the same old recommendations everybody's giving. Tweak them a little bit to make them yours, make them stand out a little. So, you know, that's what I try to do, you know, with my channel. You know, I produce videos that, you know, again, try to do something a little bit different, you know. So yes, I'm giving the same sort of information, but I do it in a different way. Rubs people the wrong way a lot of times. I get complaints from people going, oh, I hate your video.
They suck. They just suck.
But hey, that's not for everybody, right? And I don't want to be just like everybody else, you know. So again, to be a little different, take your template and tweak it just a little bit anyway. So, but really, AI versus Luminar 4. So AI just did an update. It's called update number 4. It just happens to be coincidental, the same number as Luminar. And it features something that I want to talk about a little bit later, and that's a bokeh effect that you can incorporate into your photos if they don't already have some beautiful bokeh. I mean, perhaps you're photographing it at 5.6 or at f8 or something to get everybody in the group in focus and whatnot, but you don't want your background in focus either. So you can adjust your background to give it a blur. And as you know, bokeh, the Japanese word for the quality of your out of focus background in photography.
Sweet, sweet bokeh.
So, what is bokeh going to do for your photo? Well, it makes your subjects stand out, makes them kind of pop from the background, so to speak. Puts emphasis on your subjects. So anyway, we'll talk about that a little bit, but some of the differences between Luminar and Luminar AI. Luminar 4 in itself is closer to a Lightroom Photoshop type thing, where you can fine tune and tweak the tiniest little things, versus AI is kind of a quickie version of something. But AI still offers things above and beyond what Luminar 4 will. And that's, starting with a laundry list of things, you get 30% more, sky enhancement or accents than you do in Luminar 4. There's 7,000 or more than 7,000 actual recognizable objects that AI understands what they are, and it focuses in on and differentiates between other things in the photo. It enhances your 3D effect, your depth of field has that capability as well. The new tool is kind of different than layers. The new tool allows you to brush in colors and detail and sharpness and do skin adjustments and things like this without having to apply new layers. So it's kind of a faster work in. So that alone is enough for me. I hate layers, always having to, again, that slows everything down for me. It has better clone and stamp and eraser function than it had in the past. It's got better color harmony. Who doesn't like that for your color photos, right? It's got great black and white conversion tools as well. Again, one clicks through your templates, but even then you can fine tune those to make them your own, and I'll show you that a little bit later as well. It can, again, the AI can work on your compositional framing for you. Again, just adjusting here and there, and you can just tweak it and make it the way you like. So that's a nice tool. And atmospheric effects, mist, fog, those kinds of things, sweet. Body refinement, again, for portraiture and things like this, of course, like I just said with the bokeh part of the portraiture thing. But it's got AI has a great, portraiture section in its tools that allow you to work on the face and the eyes, your iris enhancement, putting the emphasis on the eyes. It makes a world of difference, as again, I'll show you that later. Body refinement, I don't use that so much because, people's bodies are the way they are. Now, if you're a professional and you have a client who says, "Oh, I look kind of fat, can you slim me down?" Sure, you can do that. As I said, I don't do that because that's not my thing. So I leave the body refinement thing alone. People are who they are. Hey, I'm a little fat, so why not? Everybody can be who they are, right? So those are really the main differences between Luminar 4 as a software program and Luminar AI as its own standalone. Now, as I said, they're both plugins that you could use with Lightroom and other types of things, but again, that's way too much work for me. It's not what I'm into. Again, I just like to take pictures and then produce the best look I can as quick as I can and move on. Post them on Instagram or Facebook and get a bunch of likes from my friends and family. That's kind of where I am with photography anyway. So, but again, with Luminar AI's number 4 update, they introduced this bokeh feature, and what it allows you control over is that background. So I'm gonna move to the computer here in a second and pull up a sample and kind of walk you through what that looks like. Again, it's some really cool stuff, and that's the reason why I'm making this video. You know, it's not to sell Luminar programs. You know, even though I do have a link down below that you can click on to save yourself $10 from that, and hey, that's a little kickback for me, so why not putting in the effort to help spread the word, so to speak. But really, it is a cool feature. You know, again, it allows you to blur that background if you do have it too much in focus or it's distracting in any way. You can focus on certain aspects of the background you want to blur out. You can have, and again, I'll show you examples of that, but you can have people who are side by side, and you can blur out this person and keep this person in focus. That's pretty cool, you know. Again, just things that you could do with this new feature are pretty amazing to me. You can brighten the background or darken the background. You know, you could focus on certain, maybe just the face and blur out the body. You know, there's a number of different things that this feature allows you to do. So, with that said, let's move over to the computer here and let me show you a sample of how that works. So, why don't you run off and grab a snack, grab a beverage of some sort, and come on back in just a sec. Okay, so as I said, I'm going to show you kind of how I deal with using Luminar AI. So I just I took a picture of Dylan yesterday at 5.6 just so I could get the background here in nice clear focus. Of course, my wife would see this and she'd be like, "What the fuck? I can't believe you're showing the world what the house looks like before we straighten it all up and everything." But hey, I like it this way as an example, just to show you, you know, what a cluttered background can look like if you blur it out, you know, using the bokeh. So I'm going to walk you through just a couple of quickie things that I do in Luminar AI. And for those who use it, you probably already have your own workflow. But for anybody who's new to Luminar AI, you know, I want to you know, show you what the capabilities of here are. So you open up a picture in the program, and it defaults to opening up with the templates. You know, you can go through a number of different styles of templates, and again, Luminar's artificial intelligence is going to look at the photo and determine what are we going to do with little Batman here. You know, actually, he's a mix, right? He's got Batman and looks like Spider-Man shorts on here, so he's a mixed-up superhero. But anyway, what Dr. Scott does is I pretty much have a signature look for my own Luminar, and I use close-ups. So I go into the template here. You have a choice of 5 to choose from. Each one of these renders a different look. Like the iconic goes black and white. You know, the brush up. Give it time. You can always tell when it's thinking because of this blue heartbeat looking thing in the corner over here. The featured face, you know, looks like this. You know, looks like typical, again, exactly what it sounds like. It's featuring the face. And we have a midday. Yeah, has its look. And the one I use is Focus. And it's just a starting point for me. From that point, I now go up here to edit. And starting at the top, so we have tools, you know, and these are your sidebars over here for tools. You can go into enhance, and you can increase the enhance, which means artificial intelligence is playing more of a role in deciding the final outcome of your picture. But it's a default at 50, so I just leave it that way. Composition is going to decide, whether you're cropping or changing perspective or whatever else. But when you're in, remember I picked templates and I picked focus. There's certain things in focus which are already highlighted. Light is one. For exposure, sometimes I play with it. This one looks to be exposed just fine, so I'm not going to mess with it. Smart contrast is always in focus anyway, up to 5. I like to increase that up to 10. I kind of like units of 10 anyway. I don't know whether that's the teacher in me, but highlights, I bring them down to 30 just because I think they're usually a little bright anyway. My shadows, bring them up by 10, and that's kind of all I do in light. Color, even though it's not in here, or it's not focused, I tend to just add a bit anyway of saturation and vibrance. Remove whatever color cast, just a tad, just to say I did. Details, same thing. Medium and large details by default are the slider bars are up on these. I tend to add just a bit of small detail in there. Also add a little sharpening, not a whole lot. 10 units of 10 again. And that's pretty much it for the rest of this stuff is all creative things and everything. And, again, Luminar AI's got all kinds of cool stuff that you can add into here. Fog, you can add fog, you can add mist, layered fog, amount of layered fog. It's kind of odd looking. We get fog in the living room, so obviously that would be for landscape type stuff. Anyway, and then down here in portrait, because that's what I usually shoot in, is my favorite little sample subject here is Dylan. So now this portrait bokeh is, the whole reason for this video in the first place is what I'm going to show you. But first, I just finished walking you through my, through my workflow. So generally, face light, I like to put at 15, get a little extra light on him. The eyes, iris flare, that's my favorite feature when it comes to the eyes. I like to boost that up around 50. Get lots of flare in there. Now, of course, I don't have a big close-up on this. One thing I didn't tell you is this photo I took on my A7R2 with a Carl Zeiss Distagon 35mm 1.4 at 5.6 again. So that's how I got this photo in the first place. So I'm not exactly zoomed in on his face or anything. I don't like to enlarge eyes, and it looks freaky on people, so I don't do it. Eye whitening, I don't go nuts on that. I mean, you could, and even though that 70 didn't do a whole heck of a lot, but sometimes you add too much white in there and it makes the person look kind of freaky too. So I don't do that. But again, 10 sounds good. So eye whitening, I'll put 10. Eye enhancer, again, another 50. I'll add that just to, again, it's enhancing around the eye area. The eyebrows, improve them by 10. I don't think he needs much improvement, but hey, why not? Now the mouth, lip saturation, get that up about 15 just to get his mouth alive and kicking. Redness, 6 or 7. Darkening, maybe 5-ish. Teeth whitening, not that he needs it, but we'll boost that up to 15 anyway, just to make him look all cool. Now the skin, again, in focus, this is the default here. Again, the skin can be, AI, it's determining whether to soften it or not to do anything with it at all. But, again, the default for this is 35, I think it is. So, hey, why not leave it where it is? Looks good on him anyway. There's no shine to really remove. There's no skin defects to remove. He doesn't have a face full of pimples and everything like some subjects may have. So I don't mess with it. The body I don't mess with either. They say if people are fat, they're fat. If they're too skinny, they're skinny. Hey, they are what they look like. Now, the whole reason I'm doing this again is for the portrait bokeh. This is the new feature just added this week. So what it looks like, and of course I'll expand all the fields here. It comes up gray. It's all grayed out here. Nothing much going on. So you start out with an amount. So as you can see, the background is pretty clear. Again, my wife would be complaining about this, but if I said, "Don't worry, dear, I'll just I'll blur it so nobody can see." So let's as I said, I like round numbers. So let's start at 50, and let's see what that happens. Remember the little light here, and right away you can see the blur happening in here. And by default, of course, we're on focus. So what's the focus of this photo? It's going to be Dylan. Again, this is the artificial intelligence recognizing a human subject and saying this is going to be the focus, and everything else behind him will be out of focus. Again, because you can change what's in focus or out of focus. It's just like a layer tool. So as you can see, when I go over top of him, he's highlighted red. But if you also notice, part of the blanket over here is also, you can notice that just by looking at the photo itself. Part of that blanket is in focus. And why is that? Because it's artificial intelligence. It's not real intelligence.
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
Again, it's doing the best it can, but that's why it needs us humans to, change whatever you can, based on your own visuals, what you see. So I would be wanting to change that so that it's out of focus. And I also see here that his little index finger. Wait for the screen to catch up here. You can always tell when this turns blue. Look how his index finger is out of focus. So what we would do in this case is change over here where it says defocus. And now I'm going to kind of zoom in and again highlight or paint over what needs to be in focus. So let's zoom in a little bit more. All right, so let me add that back in here. Oh, sorry, defocus. No, remain on focus. What am I thinking? So yeah, I'm gonna paint in his finger so that it's back in focus again. And that would be that. So let me come back out of here and give the computer a second to catch up. And voila, it looks better. So it's back in focus. Now back to that blanket. Again, the blanket is oh, hang on. Yeah, there we go. So the blanket is now needing to be defocused. So what we're going to do is zoom in, wait for the computer to catch up. All right, now we're going to paint over the blanket. So anything in red around the blanket is going to be needed to be painted back over again. Voila. Back to let it render. Calculating. All right. So now we have fingers and back in focus. Things that shouldn't be in focus are now out of focus. We look at brightness now. And brightness is going to determine the background. Is it going to be darker? Maybe lighter? So of course, when we do that, we darken the background. It it highlights Dylan more, right? He kind of pops out of the screen. So again, looks nice. Now you can brighten it, but why would you want to do that? I'm not sure. So yeah, I kind of like the brightness reduced to 45. So that looks kind of interesting. I can also blur out the background a little more too by depth correction. So if I bring that down, let's say down to 30. Look at that blur. Ooh. Blurred out just about everything there. Edge correction, same thing. If I play with that, see if there's any change. You may notice any change. 100%. Notice any change? Yeah, edge correction, as in edges around things. You can see this. Its fingers disappeared and whatnot on that. So that's obviously something you don't want a whole lot of. So put that back. So this is where I would probably leave this. Now, of course, I would go in and crop around him and whatnot to make that look good. So that's the first thing that I would show you. But one of the other things, let me open this one, is about making people disappear as well. That's always interesting. Well, not disappear, but and this one, let me bring back. See, I've already worked on this one here, so let me go back to the original. Just show you the original image. All right, so this is what it looked like before I did anything. Now the picture itself's a little bright, but first let me straighten this out. So again, it's one of the good things about the composition tool. In our templates, I forgot to get my template going here. All right, so here now, same thing. Bring that exposure down. That looks about good right there. Let's go 70. Smart contrast up to 10. Highlights. Let's get rid of some of these highlights. Bring up the shadows. All right. Color. Bump the color a tad. Vibrance. Just a tad. Remove any color tabs. Good. Set before, a little detail, a little bit of sharpening, and that is it. Looks much better just the way it is right here. I'm gonna just speed up for a minute, just for time. Let's say I do this by habit out of most things, so very quick for me to do so. You can follow along yourself as to seeing the effects as they happen. There's no teeth to show, so like the bottom of the teeth. Now onto the actual bokeh part. So I've got the picture pretty much where I would normally have it, and as I said, this one was not taken at 5.6. This was actually my Summilux 1.4 on my M10. So was it M10? No, this was an M9. I took this with. So anyway, this is already out of focus. So I wouldn't need to add a whole heck of a lot in there. But as you can see, what's happening too right here. Watch. Let me bring that back. Watch this part of the handle of the spoon. Again, the AI is bumping things out of focus that it thinks is the background. So by bringing that up to maybe 15, again, the background looks nice. You can see everything that's in focus. Now, I'm not going to go through the same things again because I already showed you one of the features I do want to show you is blurring out the second person. So let's say the focus is going to be on Dylan here. So I can defocus and let me bump that radius a bit. So I can defocus over here and get rid of all the red. Obviously everything in red is in focus. So let me paint over, down. And of course, if I miss around the edges, forgive me, but it's just for demonstration purposes. I would probably go much slower, more carefully otherwise. So let it do its thing, and voila, we have out of focus over here. And again, we can put things in focus. So same thing, I can zoom into the spoon, and then put it in focus, so the spoon can look as it's supposed to look. A spoon is supposed to look anyway. In that regard. Back out, let the rendering do its thing, and there you go. It's back in focus. So maybe I would, darken everything that's out of focus, which is the background. Again, makes him pop a little more. Add a bit more blur to the background, and there you go. Things look pretty good. So there you go. Well, it's still rendering. So this was the example I wanted to show you. This feature in particular in Luminar AI. So is that cool or is that cool? Something that I would, be happy with overall. Just again, if you're looking to, really isolate your subject, your particular subject, and look how clear that face is and how out of focus over here. So looks great, huh? All right, so that was pretty much the end of my demonstration.
Getting there's half the fun.
All right, so now just to wrap things up, this was Camera Talk with Dr. Scott, brought to you by Modesty Photography, where we're here to save you money, help you with tips and tricks and little photo things, introduce you to new gear or old gear. In my case, mostly old gear and vintage lenses. Things like these software updates, things like that. Just cool stuff, especially for beginners or novice type photographers. Hey, a few professionals out there getting something out of this, good for you. At least I'm contributing in some sort. But anyway, that was my video for the week. It was about Luminar AI and their update with the portrait bokeh feature added to their latest update number 4. So again, if you want to purchase Luminar or Luminar AI, there's a link below where you can save $10 off of the purchase. Now, it's economical, right? You could buy Luminar, the full package, for $89. Click below, I'll save you $10. That's only $79. It's yours for life. You update as like this update 4 that they just came up with. I loaded it up, didn't cost me a penny, right? I've already purchased it, so it's mine. The only time you're going to pay any more money is if they do a full-blown version change and things like that. But they don't come all that often, and when they do, you get a discount from that anyway because you're already a customer. So you get the best of both worlds. So anyway, hey, why not support my channel? If you like what you saw today, why don't you subscribe? And if you like Modesty Photography, subscribe. And if you just want to help out Dr. Scott, why don't you subscribe? And the algorithm here at YouTube also likes the thumbs up, or the likes. So if you could give me a like, that would be great too. And here's the thumbs up girls to support me on that. And lastly, all I want to say is living in a world of COVID-19, get your vaccine. I know there's a lot of anti-vaxxers out there who say, oh no, it's not for me, it'll take years off my life or do this or that. COVID-19, especially this Delta version, may take years off of your life like right now. So if you're worried about some vaccine taking 5 years off your life, 20 or 30 years from now, oh well. I'd rather that happen than die this week or this year. So anyway, get your vaccine. Don't be an anti-vaxxer. Spoil sports. Anyway, so stay safe, social distancing, wear your mask if you're asked to, stay out of crowded elevators. When you go to the bar, try not to get too touchy-feely once you've had 27 beers, and be safe. And other than that, hey, come on back next week and we'll talk about something else, all right? So this was Dr. Scott, and thanks for watching. Thanks for being you. And remember, you belong here. All right, so we'll see you next week. All right, bye-bye.
Here I am.